Welcome to the Love Language Leadership Summit. I am Shannon Wooten, and with me today I have certified life coach of 20 years, media and talk show host, motivational speaker, giving me the motivation all the time, creator, producer, and host of the newly syndicated media project, You Day. Thank you for being here, Coach LaMonte.
Thank you, Shannon, for having me. It's such an honor to be here and to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is love.
So for those that are catching this today, whether you're joining us via YouTube or you're listening in via whatever podcast medium that you tune into, if you haven't viewed or listened to the very first installment of the Love Language Leadership Summit, go back and listen to it, and you'll get a download of what the intention is behind this. And when I reached out to Coach LaMonte to participate, be a part of this, for me, luckily and honorably, it's because I know him personally, and we have worked together on, at this point, several projects. At this point, I'm super honored. I met him here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And as I shared with you all, if you haven't listened to or viewed that first installment of the summit, that I wanted to do this simply because this is a topic that I am being presented right now in my life. It is screaming loud in between the space between my ears that this is important and people want to share and talk about love. So I know why I wanted to do this, and I know why it was important for me to have Coach here, because he's just, as I said, brings me the motivation all day long, is a huge supporter of me, throws the love my way, and I'm so grateful and constantly ask the universe, how the hell did I get this amazing person in my life? Yes, thank you, please. But I'm curious, what made you say yes to contributing to this talk?
Well, you know, first of all, this is a subject that we don't talk about much because it seems as if there's more hate spoken of these days than it is about love. And, you know, for many people, the question is that we live in a world of opposites. So when you hear or ask the question, I've asked the question several times, you know, who is the opposite to God? And everyone will say the devil. Well, the devil is not the opposite to God because God created the devil. So when it comes to love, the opposite of love is not hate, because love is greater than hate. Hate is the enemy to love. So that when we speak more of hate and we experience hate, you know, all around us, it seems that everywhere we go, there are tweets or there are movements that are grounded in hate, but it's now time to talk about love. It's now time to put love back in its place, because the things that we look at concerning this earth today, the only way that it could be healed is by the conversation based off of love and understanding what love is. So that when you ask me, first of all, I told you, once you call, I'm always there. And that's just a relationship that we have. But I love this concept and I love the direction that you're going, because I believe that if there's any source in this world that should talk about love, I'm not surprised that you're the driver of this.
Wow. Honestly, if you're not listening to that right now and feel like it was just like melodic verbiage into your ears, I don't know. I don't know. When you speak, the eloquency is like this beautiful rhythmic melody. It's lyrical. It's beautiful. It's articulate. This man speaks directly to your soul. So I'm intrigued then. So you brought up a topic that I think some people would combat, maybe because they're not willing to see it, or maybe they don't see it. But could you unpack or expand upon, for those of us that are listening to this genius and this perspective that you have of, in this day and age, our propensity is to look to negativity?
Yeah, and I worked in an industry, I worked in news for several years, for 7 years, where negative draws numbers, it draws finances, it draws eyes, because we're conditioned to look for the negative in things. But I think that is because no one wants to step up and look for the positive. No one wants to be a cheerleader that says that it's time now to change the conversation. And the reason is because they know that negativity drives dollars. So the more negative we are, the more negative we can talk about things, the more money that can be made. But you know what? I'm ready to go. I'm ready to have just $10 in my bank account if necessary, to stop talking about negativity, so that we can actually talk about positivity. Because we have an age of people that are dying,
Mm,
because we're surrounded by negativity. There are people who are hiding out because they don't understand that love truly exists. So if we could change the dynamic, and if we can become people who are pioneers to say that, let's change the narrative, let's change the perspective, let's change the way that people approach everyday life, and let's try to remove a lot of the negative pieces out of our daily conversations, and let's focus on how we can bring love more into our daily conversations. I believe that a movement can be started, but it has to be started by people who are willing to combat and willing to go to war against negative perspective. And until that happens, we're going to continue to have this conversation over and over again, and we're going to continue to wonder who will be the person to become the face of what love can be,
mm,
especially in this age of time. So it's important that we step up and we step out and we start a charge.
mm,
And love has the power and the ability and the fuel to start a movement. But we have to make sure that we're all on the same agenda. We all have the same focus in mind, that love is more important than hate.
mm.
Love is more important than any other source that could combat and fight against it. When we look at how we can solve a lot of life issues, when we look at poverty, when we look at, let's focus on poverty for a second. We have homelessness that exists in this world. I believe that if love can be there, we can solve that issue. Why can love solve that issue? Because in many cases, when we're talking about poverty and we're talking about those who lack, we criticize them and we judge. And when you start criticizing and judge, then you remove love from the situation and you bring a hatred into the situation, and you draw people away from what love can be. But if you ignore your own mindset in many cases, that you will be quick to judge, then we can start a movement and even destroy something as simple as poverty. So it's all about love. Love has to be the fuel, and it has to be the foundation to fixing anything that's going on in this country, in this world today.
So I just want to take a pause for all of that, just to let that sink in and to let yourself to be with what you heard there. What came through to you, what presented itself to you, something new, perhaps, maybe something not new, but just acknowledge how you're feeling based off of what was said. Because the whole time that you're talking, honestly, my heart, I almost feel like I could feel every beat, because your presence and the words that you're saying are so intentional. And it doesn't matter if somebody agrees with you or doesn't agree with you, or is feeling challenged by what you just said, or can't relate to it at all. But something interesting that I wanted to point out is that you said love, the opposite of love is not hate, right? And within what you said, I also heard the opposite of love is also not ignorance. And so for those that heard, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you can set me right, because these are your words, this is your sentiment, and man, am I here for it. It's beautiful and radiating. Is that you're not saying to people, we should not talk about racism, prejudice, poverty, depression, murder, suicide. You're actually saying, well, we should talk about them, but within the presence of love.
And that's the only way the conversation can happen when it comes to racism and dealing with these race issues that exist today. And I don't know if you know this, Shannon, but I'm Black. So I kind of see this firsthand. Let me tell a story really quick.
Yeah.
When I lived in, it was my teenage years. I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. In 1984, my mother surprised my brother and I and moved us out of Detroit and moved us to Dallas. So that was really a cultural shock. We went from a 95% Black city to a 95% white city. And I went to an all-white private school, and I played football. And we would go to these deep redneck towns in Texas where there were no black people. Only black person that you saw was Bill Cosby on Thursday nights on NBC. And so I would be in the backfield. I played running back and I sometimes played defense. And I would hear these football players like, nigger, I'm going to break your legs. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I was like, well, who's the nigger out here? Because I'm thinking, I'm not trying to get hurt right now. But then I saw how my teammates, and I was one of 2 black people on the team, how my teammates would be like, well, if he's a nigger, then we're niggers too, because you're not about to do this to, and they would fight for me and they became a voice for me. And I saw something in that moment. I could have found the opportunity to become racist, but at the same time, that hatred was dispelled by love, because we saw we saw a commonality that, we were a brotherhood in this team together. And regardless if I was black, they still accepted me as a brother. So where hate could have entered into my heart, love pushed it out. So I think that when we have a conversation about how we can fix many of these life issues, just like what you were saying with racism, I think that we're so quick to have a conversation ready to go to war, right, than having a conversation ready to go to love, ready to solve some of the issues. I think in many cases we have a conversation just to prove ourselves to be correct, instead of listening to both sides and then finding a place where we can heal and we can say that love won here. So I go right back to it. The opposite of love is not hate. It is not ignorance. Those are enemies. There's a difference between an opposite and an enemy. An opposite means that it is on equal playing field. And that is not what it is, because love and hate are not on the same equal playing field. Love and ignorance are not on the same equal playing field. They are enemies to love, because what those 2 things want to do is they want to prevent love from moving forward and being the greater voice in the room. But when you acknowledge that love is the greatest force that God ever created, God believed in love so much that he says that he is love. So he believed in it so much that he said that the only way that this world can function and this world can survive is if you allow what I am to permeate into every conversation, into any issue, into any into any country, into any boardroom, into any bedroom. This is the only thing that can fix issues that exist today. And until we get to that place where we allow love to become what heals instead of just a Band-Aid which covers, I got to tell you, we're going to continue to run around the same mountain over and over again.
Wow. I am, take another pause for that one. Just a little sidebar, when I set out to do this summit, and my eyes are closed because I'm tearing up and I'm crying.
You always cry every conversation.
I do. I love Coach. I love Coach so much. He's a prophet, and he is just like all of the people that are speaking here. They're thought and world changers, and they are not intimidated to have the uncomfortable conversation. And I'm so honored that you were willing to open up and to share that story with us. Because I do believe there is a host of space in this world for love to flourish. And if it wasn't true, we would not be having this conversation right now.
That's right.
The amount of people that said yes without question to appear in this summit would not occur if we weren't craving it, if there wasn't a collective whole that believed that this is the answer. Right? That believes that it doesn't matter how many eons ago things were different, or our ancestors or our families experienced hate and ignorance. It doesn't have to dictate the driver of what happens on into the future, because whether you said it beautifully in reference to God, and whether you believe in God, source, energy, universe, whatever your deity is, whatever your higher power is, whatever you believe in, even if it's just that you believe in your freaking self, right? When we allow the conversation to change and we allow a reframe of what has happened in the past to be serving of a lesson and an experience, But when we allow it to have healing and resolve and allow it to teach us things, but not to dictate us, we allow healing to occur. We allow
Right.
healing not to only occur for us, we allow healing to occur for others. We allow healing to occur for our families. We become a pillar that is showing up as you did in this moment, speaking prophecy about the way things can be if we're willing to be unafraid. Because you pointed out, the opposite of love is not hate, but the opposite of love is also not fear. And
That's right.
we're not telling people to ignore what their past has taught them or shown them about life. We're asking them to allow it to breathe wisdom into them as to how to take it as a learned experience and breathe love into it so as to heal it for ourselves and for everybody else. So I'm so honored. And my hope is that everybody listening and watching is honored to have been in the presence of such truth. And I love that you're going in it from a perspective of here's what love is not. So that leads perfectly into my next question then, which is, what does love mean to you?
Love is transparent. Love is visible but transparent, meaning that when I love, I put it all out on the line, that I have no motive associated with what I'm expressing to you. Love never damages, but it recycles. So what that means is that love can bring back and regenerate relationships, or add a new source to relationships that were damaged and broken. But love never damages. So if you want to find ways to recycle relationships, if you want to find ways to restore what has been broken and lost, love is the only way that could do that. And it leads to love is healing. Love is the best antidote to helping someone to overcome something. I went through a traumatic experience in my life from the age of 5 to 9. I was sexually molested by a male family member. I grew up in anger. I grew up in hatred and rage because I didn't understand what had happened to me. And because of that, I fell out of love with myself. And there are still moments too that we all can fall out of love with ourselves, that we all can look in the mirror and say, do I really value who I am? Do I really respect who I am? Do I love who I am? But I was able to take the reins back that I had allowed someone else, or someone took this from me and violated me. And I was able to fall in love with myself to get those pieces back. I discovered that not everyone deserves me. And not everyone deserves you, but it doesn't mean that you stop loving because they don't. So it's important that we understand that love is first being able to put ourselves in positions that those things that we would have once went to war with, now we're listening, we're responding differently. Love is a spirit. It is a spirit. It is not of the flesh, because anything that is the flesh, the Bible says, is temporary. So love is something that is ongoing. So if I love someone, I love you from a spiritual place, a place that is deep connected to who I am. And therefore, my voice reflects what my spirit says. So, when we have people that say, well, I'm love, I'm love, I'm love, I listen to what you're saying next, because the words that you say, I'm going to feel whether or not it's love or not. And love is a permanent thing, is never temporary. And I also believe too that love answers questions the mind will always continue to ponder upon. I think that there are things that we may sometimes just continue to ponder in our minds, questions that we'll continue to ask. But if you stop asking those questions that you'll never have answers to and start to love instead, I think that eventually will answer and solve the questions of our mind. So there's so many things. I used to think that love wasn't unconditional, but now I do believe that it is conditional. And I know a lot of people who have those conversations, they say, well, love is unconditional. I say, no, it's not. It is conditional. There's one of the verses that won my heart in the Bible is John 14:15. And in the word of God, it says that John is having a conversation with the Lord. And he says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. So that's a condition. If you love something, you will honor and respect them. That's a condition. if you love someone, you will, stop trying to be right and try more to listen to what that other side is saying so that you can try to understand. That's a condition. So
Mhm.
love is conditional. It's not unconditional like many of us have been grown to think that it is. So when you think about love, the question you have to ask yourself right now is, am I showing love, or am I showing something that resembles love but is not truly grounded in love? Am I pretending? Am I faking it to try to appease or win the hearts of other people when it's not genuinely love? That's why I said a few moments ago, I call it, the Band-Aid. What does a Band-Aid do? A Band-Aid covers a scar,
Mhm.
but a Band-Aid necessarily doesn't heal it. So in many cases, we have this false resemblance of love that we just feels it will just cover the situation, but it's not healing. So we have to allow love, the genuine nature of what love is, the genuine nature of where love flows from, which is our spirit, to heal situations. So that's what I believe love to be.
Wow. Um, First and foremost, I want to say again, thank you for your transparency and your honesty. And I'm sorry that happened to you.
Hmm.
And I I'm always intrigued when I'm having these conversations with any of the guests that have said yes to this, to see how um, we allow ourselves to come back to our own ideas and really truly believe that there's a root for love. Because again, I hear you saying that in reference to this experience that you had that was traumatizing for you and could have really became this structure for which you navigated the entirety of your life of being resentful and angry, and as you pointed out, developed your own kind of attitude of racism towards other people
Hmm.
and aggression that would have been absence of love. That what I hear is, again, you going back to love is not ignorance. And it required that I really see who I was about love. And in order for me to see who I was about love, and maybe in some points the juxtaposition of what I'm not being about love, I had to see where I was getting stopped. I
Hmm.
had to see where, the intention that I had for love was being penetrated or impeded upon by past experiences. And so that I hear from you, what love means to you is, like we were talking about, allowing for the entirety of your experience. And I hear, personally firsthand, we've talked several times about the long struggle my husband and I have with infertility, and
Hmm.
my bouts with suicidal thoughts, and really challenging that and getting down in the gutter with yourself, and looking at that trauma that you're facing and asking yourself, is this going to be how I lead my life? And
Right.
allowing yourself to see that if the answer to that is no, because I don't freaking like it, it's not really fun, it's eating me alive, it's turning me into a person that I don't actually feel like on my insides, allowing yourself not to run away from those traumas, not
Hmm.
allowing yourself to ostracize yourself for having those traumas, not looking to God, universe, source, and saying, why me for these traumas, but actually doing such a brave thing, which is to absorb it,
Hmm.
to understand that I may never, as you beautifully put out, have an answer for why this happened, but I can
Hmm.
choose to operate from it with aggression and disdain and anger and malice, and bulldoze anybody that comes into my path so that they're feeling the angst and the anger of what I feel. Or I can do what is in some cases even the harder thing: find love for myself with what happened.
And that's the one thing that you can gather from any trauma that happens, the trauma that took place in my life at that young age, I found those opportunities in those times to be angry, but then I found the opportunity to love.
Mhm.
Love leads to forgiveness and some things that are hard to forgive, but then you love yourself enough not to hold yourself prisoner or captive to the event, that you then forgive the person and the event that took place, and then having enough love for yourself to forgive you from these. The thing is that, yes, Shannon, we talked about, you and your husband's situation for many years, but you don't hate your body.
Right?
You don't. You
Not
love who you
anymore.
are. Yeah, not anymore, because you know what? Trauma trauma is that thing that says that, you know, yes, this has happened, but now that I've understood that it has happened, I'm going to love. And then love says this: you now produce a kind of love that can help other people that are going through the same thing, because love then brings a sense of empathy, that you understand what that person is going through. So love is a valuable tool, and so is our trauma. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, our trauma becomes a valuable tool. You know, if trauma does not swallow you up, it produces you to love. If trauma does not destroy you, it produces you to love. If trauma does not keep you silent, it produces you to love. So those are the things that I can say as I look back, that, yeah, I didn't appreciate what took place. I didn't appreciate the trauma, but the trauma no longer has power over me.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have power over it because I've learned to love from it.
Right.
So when you think about, you know, we don't understand many of the things that happen to us in life. We don't understand why certain events had to take place. But what I've come to understand is that though it happened, it's my responsibility to do something with what happened. It's
Yeah.
my responsibility to then say, well, there are people that are being affected by the same thing. So if I grow silent, that's hatred. But if I grow open and I start to open up my mouth, that's love. As
Mm-hmm.
long as I keep my story to myself, that's ignorance.
Mm.
I'm not sharing the lessons that I learned. But the moment that I open up my mouth, then love is dispelled, love is presented, love is released, and then other people start to say to themselves, well, I'm not alone. You know, love love is never a thing that's in a room by itself,
Yeah.
because love is one of the most infectious things. You know, if a person walks into the room, I know that you were just getting over something that you got when you were in Europe. You know what I'm saying? Now, if a person with the flu walks into a room, what happens if they're sneezing, they're coughing? If people aren't, you know, they didn't get the flu shot, or they're not taking something to prevent themselves, they're going to get infected. That's what love does. Love walks into a room, and if your heart is open, you're going to receive it. It is infectious. So
Mm-hmm.
if we want to talk about a virus that people should catch, let it be love.
Woo! That shit is so good. I love that. If you want to get ill with love.
That's what I'm saying.
That is the shit right there. And I love it too, because it goes back to what you were talking about, like having conditions around love. And
Hmm.
people like to start off like love is unconditional. And I never really thought about that. And that's some food for thought for me. And it's highly insightful, in my opinion, just listening to you articulate through it, is that one of the conditions that
You know,
we
can I say
have,
something really quick?
yeah.
Let me just say this, because this will change the perspective. Because the reason why I say that love is unconditional is because people have different forms of how they show love.
Mm-hmm.
If a man is abusive and he comes home and he hits his wife and he's abusive to his kids, this and that, he believes that by doing that he's showing them a sense of his love.
Right.
That's not love.
Mm-hmm.
Love doesn't hurt. Love doesn't bring pain. Love does not diminish a person to better and improve you. That's not what love is. So therefore, love is conditional, because if I love my wife, I'm not going to put my hands on her. If I love my kids, I'm not going to discipline them in a way that it causes pain and stress upon them to never want to be present or in my presence. So love, it is a conditional thing, because there are conditions. If you love me, you will treat me this way. If
Mm-hmm.
you love me, you will respond to me this way. If you love me, you will honor me in this way. And those are conditions. If it was unconditional, that means that I could do whatever I wanted to do to you and then call it love. So
Right.
so there has to be conditions, there has to be boundaries and borders when it comes to love. It has to be that if you say that you love me, then this is how I will see it,
Mm-hmm.
and these are the boundaries that I create. And I think that all of us listening right now, we should have those boundaries of how we believe that love should be, how we should embrace love, how people show us love. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? If you listen to my ideas, you've shown me love.
Right.
If you respond to me in kindness, you've shown me love. Anything that is expressed to me that is not of kindness is outside of the walls of love to me, of what I perceive love to be. So I can't accept it.
Mm.
So
I,
it is conditional.
I wholeheartedly agree with this. And I say this to my clients a lot. Anytime somebody asks me, I don't know what this means. I don't know how to get, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know why. I always go back to the same question, which I think you're offering people at this time is, if the love that you're receiving in your life right now, or lack thereof, feels off, wrong, or what you don't want, is below your boundary, is not meeting your standard or expectation of what you're envisioning for yourself, perhaps it's because you have not decided and distinguished what love actually means to you. You have ignored it for so long that whether you are co-creating it with somebody in a relationship or not, be mindful of the fact that if you've ignored love for so long and you don't like what you're receiving from them, it's because you've ignored it and haven't decided what it is that you actually want to receive. You haven't decided what love is to you.
You know what? And it's a teaching thing too. You know, when I was in elementary school, Miss Ellis taught me my ABCs. And then I would go home and I would practice, you know, and I would practice my ABCs. And then when my kids were born, I would teach them their ABCs. And then that's what they would go through. If I said ABCF, and that was taught to me, and then I taught my kids the same thing, as they then were in the presence of other people and they began to say ABF, people will say, no, it's ABC. But I've been taught ABF. Mm-hmm. So when you look back at some of the things, you can be taught the wrong version of what love is. Right. You can be taught that it is not that being abused and being hurt. You know, I mean, there are people that molest all the time, and they believe that they're showing a sense of love to the person that they're molesting.
Right.
I mean, people have a warped sense of what love is. So if you've been taught what love is, or what you believe love to be, and then you get into a circle of people that actually can tell you what love is, you have to be willing to look back and say, I learned the wrong thing. So these are lessons. Love is one of the greatest teachers. And when you surround yourself with love-minded people, they're going to educate you. And then you'll be able to educate them on what you thought love to be. But then a genuine person will teach you what love really is. You got to be open to changing your perspective. You have to be. It's just the way that it is.
Yeah, and it's really quite profound, because what I hear you saying right now is, first and foremost, what love means to you is to not be ignorant to what it actually is. But what love means to you about other people is allowing it to be a reflection, allowing love to be a mirror to you of not only what it is that you think you know about love, but allowing the world to teach you about love. Not necessarily to define what love is to you, but to kind of like be at the grocery store. Do I want oranges today? No, I don't want oranges. I wanted apples. So I'm going to choose the apple, right? But the option is still presenting itself to you. And just so the other side of that I hear you saying too is, just because somebody is willing to open up to you with a certain offer of love or a certain expression of love, the fact that you are allowing it says something about you. It says something about what you're willing to engage with love, what you've decided it means, and whether or not you are allowing yourself and your relationship with other people to evolve.
That's right. That's right. And I think that we have misused our ears. I don't think that we listen. I don't think that we, it goes back to what I said earlier, is that we have conversations to prove ourselves to be right, not to listen first, not to listen to the perspective that someone else has, not to listen to where someone else is. You can't heal without listening first. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's the thing. There are countless stories in the Bible where Jesus is going from town to town, and there talks about this blind man who's outside of the gate. He could not see that Jesus was coming, but he could hear that Jesus was coming. Mm-hmm. So he could hear that love was on the way. So you have to be able to listen. You have to be able to use your ears to listen and respond, because until we sit down and we hear one another, healing can never flow. Healing can never happen unless I'm listening to you. And you can tell that a person is listening because they're responding out of love. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is that if I'm listening, if I'm not listening, that means that I'm more focused on what I'm going to say next.
Yes.
And if that is what your focus is, that means that you're just looking to be right.
Mm-hmm.
But love says, calm down, sit back, let's listen, let's have a conversation, let's speak spirit to spirit, and let me hear what your spirit is saying about this situation, and then I'll share what my spirit is saying. And that's where you have a respect, and that's where you create a foundation that's built on what love is. So I think we need to listen more and talk less.
I love that. And I feel like I keep saying I love everything that you're saying, but I do. And I think it applies perfectly here, particularly because we are people that market and advertise and co-create in our businesses online. We utilize the online platform as a way to connect with our purpose with other people. So that said, how does love influence what you do in your business?
Oh man, you know what? I just have such a love for people. I just do. I'm fueled by seeing someone prosper. I'm fueled by seeing someone grow. Someone who didn't get it, they finally get it. When I've worked on television, that medium of looking in the camera and knowing that your words are going to impact somebody that day, knowing that there is a situation that a person is walking through right now at this very moment, that your wisdom and your love for that person can help pull them out of that place. It is that's the power of what love is, and so everything that I release, whether it be a post, whether it be a comment, I have to make sure that it's posted and it's released out of love, because you never know who you're reaching at that very moment. You never know who you're impacting at that very moment. I've literally had people that have come to me and they've said, Coach, bottom line is I was planning on killing myself today, but then you said something. There's a minister, his name is Creflo Dollar, and he was sharing this story how this man was planning on killing himself. He was sitting on his couch with his gun, and he was about to end it. He had already said goodbye and letters and notes that he had written to his family, and he was done. And he turned on the television, and he just had the television on. And if you know who Dr. Creflo Dollar is, he dresses. He is one of the nicest dressed men. And the man just sat there and said, man, that dude is wearing a nice suit. And then he started to listen. And then he changed his life sitting there, and he did not take his life. You never know what we do to other people. You never know how what we say or just showing up can do to someone. So that's how I approach life every day. I say, you know what? Who can I reach today? Who needs me today? What can I say today that's going to impact somebody's day? Because you never know what someone is going through.
That is so good. And listen, we're talking about, operating our business in the online space. But again, put this through your own filter. Obviously, how this applies to you. If you're a work from home person, if you have a corporate job, if you are a stay-at-home mom or dad, it doesn't matter. Apply this through your own filter, right? Because what I hear is that it's about your intentionality. Your intentionality is that you, going back to what you were talking about from the very beginning, which is so on point, is that I am not ignorant to my existence. And that my existence is not by freaking accident. I did not have to choose to adopt the career choice, the path, the purpose, the acceptance of my journey to be a facilitator of the truth through my experiences, to allow people to not feel alone, to allow people to feel heard in whatever filter it needs to pass through for them. I always call it same shit, different day, same suit, different outfit. Like it's forever. Whatever it applies to through you, whatever trauma you've gone through, whatever circumstance you've experienced, whatever experiences have impacted your life, you have decided to accept that your life is intentional and that you are not going to ignore that you feel like you are bestowed upon some gift to be able to convey learning and lesson and love through your experience. And you utilize your business as a medium to accept that responsibility and to allow yourself to co-create with other people from a place that's not filtered through, should I said the wrong thing? Someone's going to misinterpret what I said. They're going to misunderstand me. Their perception's not going to honor what my intention was. You have all of that because you're a human, and I think all of us do have that, right? That negative voice in our head. And you're not poo-pooing that, you're not pushing it off, you're not ignoring it, you're actually embracing it to put a fire under your ass about your mission, to continue to say, I acknowledge every single experience I had in my life. I acknowledge every single person who placed conditions on me and tried to force me into being a person that is not my true destiny. I don't ignore it, I accept it, and I use it as a vehicle to propel my mission.
And that is how you show love for yourself. And that's how you come out of the control of other people. You know, love is not controlling, you know, and that just shows such a love that you have for yourself. You have a love for your mission. You have a love for your purpose. I talk a lot about purpose and potential. I talk about it all the time. Those are my chief conversations. And that purpose is loving your assignment. Purpose is acknowledging and loving your assignment. Even those days when it seems like you can't carry on. You know, there are days I just say, you know, what the heck with this? I'll throw it up. I'll go do something else. But then love drives you back to take another note, to take another idea, to start to evaluate where you are. You know, so that just shows that regardless of anything, a person's words were not greater than your individual purpose for what you've been called to do in your life. And, you know, Shannon, I see the people that you've affected, and I hear many of the things that you say and you do, and just your boldness. And I've told you before, I said, you know what, it's just, you know, the way that you are, the way that you talk, the things, your ideas. I mean, you are remarkable, and you're reaching people with such a raw honesty. And you're speaking to them with such a raw honesty. And I think that a lot of people are not like you. And we need to have more Shannons in this world, people who are going to be bold and say things you don't necessarily want to hear at that moment, but you need to hear. You know, love is being honest. Being honest. You know, I think sometimes that we say that love is being protective over a person's, you know, heart and over their minds. But no, sometimes love is more bold, and love says, no, you're wrong. Love says, no, you need to hear this right now before you end up making a mistake that can change your life. So I hear your boldness. You know, you took a step out on faith to even do what you're doing right now with this summit. And I want you to know that there are going to be people that are going to be impacted by this. You know, I said before, when you called, I would answer because I know that you would do the same thing for me. And it's just about taking a step out on faith. You know, really quick, you know, there's the story in the Bible, and I know a lot of people don't always, you know, believe in the Bible. As you can see, I do. But there's a story in the Bible where Jesus is walking on water and the disciples are in the boat. And Peter cries out, and Peter says, Lord, if that is you, bid me to come. And Jesus said, come. Now he said, come to everyone that was in the boat that was going through the same storm, but Peter was the only one that responded. Peter gets out of the boat and he begins to walk. And as he's walking on the water, he begins to see something that we in our natural state can't see. And the Bible is very particular where it says where Peter began to see the wind. I've never seen wind all these years of my life. I've never been able to see wind. But Peter stepped out of a natural state into a supernatural state and began to do something that was just not natural. We can't walk on water. But he began to do something that was supernatural. He began to see the wind. He began to see everything that was causing the storms around him. And because he could not handle it, the Bible says he began to sink back in. Can you handle what love shows you? Can you handle that you walk in a place of love? You have eyes of love. When you see hatred the way that it is, will you back down, or will you continue to persist in love? Because you're the person that's going to impact and make a change in this world. The only way that you can make a change is to continue to walk on unsettled surfaces, to continue to show up in love, to continue to show up and say that I'm carrying a message of love. I am love. I'm showing up in this place. I want to make sure that hatred does not win. I want to make sure that ignorance does not win. You cannot be loved without taking a step of faith. You cannot be loved without standing in the face of hatred, in the face of darkness, and saying that I am going to be the light in this place today. I am going to deliver a message of love. Love is here because I showed up today. And because I'm here, I know that hatred can't win. That's who we need to be. We need to be people who step out on faith, because faith is what will dispel fear every day. And love is grounded in faith. So if you want to walk in love, you got to learn to step out on faith and be the only person in many cases that's speaking the word of love.
Whoo! Praise. Preach it. Lift it up on high. Holy shit. I am over here crying my face off, guys. And I'm honestly, the whole time I'm talking, I listened to, this morning, one of the things that I did to start my day going, try to step out, you know, in gratitude and graciousness and support every morning. And so I started listening to, Oprah came up on my YouTube, and she said something that you, I think, are touching on here, is that I was raised Catholic and I would consider myself more spiritual. I know we've talked about that at this point in my life. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that Oprah was talking about was, if you don't know what your purpose is right now, forget everything else, go find it. If you have anything to do in your life today, in this moment, it is to begin drilling down and understanding what your purpose is. And as you're speaking, that's like flashing through my brain. And then all of a sudden, going back to my days of, you know, Sunday school, all I could hear in my head was, and of the greatest of these is love.
That's
the greatest of these is love. And
that's right.
So it really, when I was going through my coach certification, we had this process where we were trying to delineate what your purpose on this planet is. And everybody came to the same conclusion for me. You were to deduce it on your own, and then everybody in the room was to deduce it for you. And everybody came to the same conclusion for me. And it's love. And I felt so cheeky and so fluffy and pink and butterfly-y and unicorny rainbow bullshit up my ass about that I just could not accept it. And sitting here and having this conversation with Coach, I hope that you glean from this one very important thing. You deserve to be loved, and that is a part of your purpose. You deserve to go out and figure out what your distinct purpose on this planet is, and you deserve to allow yourself to be in the reception of love for yourself, in co-creation of it, and in allowing the world to believe that we all are deserving of it. Perpetuate that message.
That's right.
Even if it feels like you're farting rainbows and, you know, shooting out unicorns out your butt, it doesn't matter. Allow yourself to deduce it for yourself. And the other part of it, I did not pay him to say that. All of that stuff was completely genuine and authentic. And I'm so humbled. And listening to you say that, I'm just sitting on the other side in complete reception, which for those of you listening, being able to receive love is actually an act of love. Right? So when someone says compliments to you or shares with you how they authentically feel about you, if you glean nothing else from this conversation with Coach today, allow yourself to gut check yourself, check in with yourself and say, where am I not allowing me to be a receiver of love? Because that is an act of love in and of itself. But also I wanted to say, shit, I have the coolest people in my life. And the fact that you are in my life and that we have this relationship, for those of you watching or listening, do you have people in your life like this, right? People that lift you up on high, people that challenge your brain, challenge your heart, champion for you to do better, be better, show up and do the hard things, the things that make you feel like you're showing up fluffy and, you know, like I said, farting rainbows and shooting out unicorns, that feels outside of your comfort zone, but challenges you to do it anyway. If not, get you some people like that. So to wrap this up, for everybody that you just took up on high today, I'm vibrating. Literally, if my arms were wings, they would be out, man. I mean it. For everybody that's watching or listening, that's like, get me some Coach LaMonte in my life, ASAP. What do you have going on? Where can people find you?
So you can find me on You Are Too Much.
You are too much. I'm here for it. All of it.
You can find me on Instagram Twitter, Facebook, at Coach LaMonte, and that's Coach LaMonte. You can find me there. You can reach out to me there. A lot of the things that we're working on right now are in development. So my website in development. We're working on some apps, some cool things, and UDay will be premiering their daily 60-second motivational, inspirational messages that are produced and infused into morning news, because news is negative. What are we doing? We're bringing love into the space where negativity is, and we're speaking to people on a daily basis. So that's actually debuting in the first quarter of 2020. So 2020 is going to be a big year. Looking forward to it. And 2020 is going to be a big year for you too, Shannon. There's a lot of things that are coming your way. There's a podcast that you're already doing, but there's a podcast that's going to be heard by this people throughout this nation. And I believe that that's coming for you. And there are a lot of great works. A new book is going to be birthed from you too. You're going to, have a lot of different ideas that are going to just begin to flow. So books are just going to start to be downloaded into you. So be ready and be prepared to start writing. It's going to be a season where you're going to do nothing but write. And your books are going to fall into the right hands of a lot of people. So this nation will know who you are. So be patient. It's coming.
I am beside myself. Again, did not plot this or plan this for any of this. I'm just in so much gratitude. I'm probably going to continue to cry for the rest of the day. My whole body is shaking. I mean it, guys. But I want to just say, when UDay comes out, you better believe that I'll be throwing my weight behind it in supporting of Coach, because this man, this human, this entity, this prophet in this lifetime is a gift. So I want to just invite you to go out and immerse yourself in all things Coach LaMonte. And thank you for being here, Coach. It means so much to me.
And really quickly, you know how you can pretty much end the way that Shannon is feeling right now? Just mention Pittsburgh Steelers. And then what it's going to do is just going to drain her spirit, and it's just going to flush her out.
You're just talking so much shit right now. So much hate. Freaking Patriots fans.
Hey, I'm a Patriot fan. We're champions right now.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are killing it. So for those of you that are joining us again, you can tell this is my friend. This is a human that I love, and I think is good for this earth and this planet and this lifetime. And I'm grateful.
You are too. And you are too, Shannon.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be able to traipse the land of this us with him at the same time. And a big thank you to you, the audience, for joining us. Please see the show notes if you're tuning in via YouTube for a freebie from me, and for today's guest links from Coach on how to connect with him. And because love is meant to be shared and sharing is caring, if you loved this conversation, if something really got your juices flowing and made you pause and think for a second, please feel free to share this conversation, whether it's on iTunes, whether you're seeing it here on YouTube, you're watching on Instagram TV, please feel free to share this content with a friend, or message us directly with any questions that you may have by looking in the show notes for our contact information. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by. Coach, again, big thanks to you.
Much love to you, Shannon. Everybody keep walking in love, even when darkness seems that it wants to win. Keep walking in love. Be the light.
Couldn't agree anymore. Be the light in your life. Be good to yourself, for fuck's sake. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.